welcome folks. Mil-Spec Opsmaker here. This is going to be your sit rep for Monday evening at about 6:32 p.m. Coming to you from the great state of Texas. That's going to be Central Time, by the way. And so this is going to be our sit rep for this week, kicking it off, looking at the Maxwell stuff. So without further ado, let me hop over here to the board. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and bell for notification. And I got some fresh batteries in my wireless mic tonight, so I'm hoping that it doesn't go out. But worst case, if I have to, I got the boom over here, so I can reach for it if we need to. So we'll start out here on Skyglass. I just want to point out what's going on relative to the military aspect. We're sitting up around our normal 200 number right now. Looks a little bit more than that, just based on what we're seeing. There's a lot of aircraft congestion across here in the center of Texas, which is kind of a normal thing. Let me do this. I'm going to change the map color so that I can get a little better eyes on, and then we're going to just kind of break out on what's going on the list and see. Now you're going to notice one of the things right out of the gate is that there seems to be a lot more traffic in this general area today. And I'm going to point that out because there is some interesting stuff going on. If you remember, not long ago, we actually were looking at Key West, and I said, man, you know, the DOJ went down there several times, and then we saw the base commander from Guantanamo headed over there to the Naval Air Station in Key West. And so we're going to take a closer look at that because today, normally there's not a lot of traffic going in and out of there. Today it is being inundated with aircraft. And so we're going to look closer at that. As you guys can see, a lot of this right here, these are all pretty much trainers, okay? Same thing here in this panhandle area, but this stuff out here is not. All right, so let me pop up, see if I can get our list out here real fast. Just to see what we've got. Looking at the types, let me alphabetize it here and just see anything catches my eye off the top. I'm not seeing, we got a lot of NAs up, which would be consistent with what I'm seeing today. Very interesting. A couple R135 spycraft. The NAs are the ones that are, you can see just kind of blinking across here. These are aircraft that don't want to be identified. Those are not the pink ones that we normally see. But there is that, all right? And so we do have two E6s up also, by the way. And let me see, I'm going to back away from this for just a minute. We'll come back to this one here shortly. But let me bump over here to our flat map real fast. Just want to point out, this is that congestion I was talking about in Key West. Now, I don't know what's going on. I speculate that there may be some trials happening down here in the Florida Keys. It is very remote, not a lot out there other than, I mean, further south you got Guantanamo Bay. But this is one area I've been watching. But like I said, all of these right here, a lot of Navy birds. And I'm going to show you here on the map, sorry, on the flight tracker here, what's going on in and out of the airport, okay? All right, and then of course, we're going to talk about Miss Maxwell because there is something definitely amiss going on. And you don't want to miss this because something is definitely not right with what we're seeing. So, all right, let's hop over here real fast to Flashbang, check out his schedule for today. It looks like he's back in the White House. This is for Monday, talking about this new little thing here. And then he's also meeting with CEOs of companies to talk about how the administration is going to work to move goods to the shelves. And then I think here, this even more well-stocked this holiday season. And so let's take a little closer look at what, yeah, here we go. Ready? On the shelves. And so this is going to be the LAX, the LA port and Long Beach port. You can see these are boats that are anchored waiting to get in. And then this is the port. And so now we've been looking at this port for a couple weeks. And you guys remember what it looked like before. It hasn't really changed much at all. And so it looks like we still got quite a few sitting out there. It is a little bit less than it was. But if we get over here to Breitbart and just kind of look at what the statistics are telling us for this port. Now this was November 13th. But if you get down in here to this, they're saying that their average still is about 17 days. That was on the 13th. That's where it was the last time we were talking about it. it looks like they are starting. If you notice, these are the ships that are coming into port and the waiting. We're up to 83 ships is what this is counting right now. That was on the 12th, and I think that actually number is still continuing to increase. And so remember, he pumped in right about in here with his $540 billion to turn things around. And so let's see, and then this is the average weight, and so you can see it is on a steady uptick on that bar chart. And so that would indicate that whatever he is doing is not working, and that we are actually going backwards by the day, okay? All right, so there is that. Now let's jump over here. I do want to look at the TFRs real fast so you guys can see. Looks like we got somebody headed into Wisconsin in the coming day. Sorry, I say Wisconsin, sorry, Minnesota. Amazing what it looks like when you back up and then zoom in and get a totally different location. So, but anyway, this is Minnesota. Looks like he's headed into St. Paul area. That's going to be VIP. And of course, we still got the brown zone. Everything else is cleared on the East Coast. Don't know what this is over Winston-Salem. Let's see, TFR, it's going to be, where are you here? It's a fire. Okay, so it looks like we got some fire up here in the mountains, or the mountain area of North Carolina. And then, of course, this is space operations off the coast of Florida. And everything else, I want to say, looks to be normal. A couple earthquakes down here. And that one is a new one. Let's just see what this is related to. And that's going to be a hazards. Let's see. Los Angeles Electric, Gas and Electric Company. So that's tied to something with gas and electric, okay? All right. There is that. Now let me back away. Let's take a look at our volcanic activity from the ash alert. And you may notice that there are more than what we usually see. That's because there are 10. Normally we get about 7 or 8. And so we've got 10 volcanoes that are actually spewing ash at the moment. That is pretty high. And this one here looks to be going again. We typically get this one, and then the one in Russia. It doesn't look like Russia is spewing just yet. But if you get down into this general area, I believe they just had some pretty big earthquakes down here too. So that would indicate why we have everything going on down that Central and South American coast. Okay, so that is going to be our volcanic activity. Now let's get over to the bases, and then we're going to start to kind of dip our toes into the water here for what is going on. And so this is going to be Biggs Army Airfield. I wanted to point out it slowed down last week briefly, and it has now kicked back up. So you'll notice we had some arrivals today. I'm going to open up the board a little further, but just want to point out you had a Sierra Pacific that came in from Tucson. That is their home operation base, so that probably came in empty, more than likely. And then Omni Air that came in also from Indianapolis. But looks like that Spa Bird 709 is actually heading to Boise, Idaho. So if you're up there, you are getting some fresh poppies more than likely. I would imagine they are getting close to having a lot of these Afghanis that came in rehomed at this point. And so what we need to be watching for are these camps to collapse. If they don't collapse, we need to pay very, very, very close attention to this. All right, and I will show you why here in just a second. But this is, if we go over to the arrival board, just kind of get through, you can see over the weekend, starting actually Friday, we started to see that uptick again. So look at that. That is probably what, 8 or 9 aircraft coming in. Looks like a lot of Omni Express. And then we're going to look at the departures and see where these folks left. But these are all arrivals coming in inbound. Now, they could have been bringing a fresh set of legs in from a poppy perspective. But that right there that's a lot of flights in one day. All right. And they typically are doing that because ain't nobody watching, right? It's a Thanksgiving weekend. But now let's get over to departures and just take a quick look at what's going on there. Where did they go? All right. So starting Friday, remember we didn't do anything. We had Thanksgiving on Thursday. Friday we didn't do a show. So if we go back to Friday, we've got some 67s, 300s, 200s, and a 737-800. All of these. So you had one that went to Indianapolis. You had one went to Washington. One went to Sophia, which is that's a pretty long flight. Alliance Fort Worth, Seattle-Tacoma, we had Seattle-Washington, Boeing Field, and then we had El Paso, and then another one up to Baltimore, and that's where these aircraft left. And then, of course, another one here, that's Boise, that took place today. But you can see the uptick in moving of immigrants into our country is definitely was like, that's super boosted over the weekend, okay? So there is that. Now, one of the things, let me see what our next little deal is. Okay, this is going to be Swift Air and their iAero flights. Now, notice I want to point out here just the fact that most of these are north of the border, with the exception maybe this one looks like it's headed down to Havana again. But these are all up into the United States. So this is their second leg. But if we go back to earlier today and we take a look at what the Swift Air stuff was doing earlier, you can see a lot of those flights now, if you look at the map up there with the aircraft, we're all south of the border, okay? And so that's just kind of the routine. In the mornings, they do the pickups, bring them into the U.S., and then in the afternoons, they basically push them out to our communities, all right? So there is that. And let's just take a closer look at a couple Swift Airs. This one caught my eye because it left on Saturday. I thought it was interesting. You don't see the Swift Airs go to Bahamas very often, so I don't know what it was doing there. But it rolled out of Memphis on Saturday, went down to Nassau. Again, you don't see that very often, so I just wanted to point that out. And of course, this is probably your biggest prime carrier for moving immigrants into our country, okay? And then this one here landed 5 hours, 13 minutes ago, came out of Guatemala City up to Harlingen, Texas. So saved somebody probably a little bit of walking, all right? So there is that. And the last one here, 531 AU. This one went from Harlingen, Texas, which is border town, that's down here in Valley, up to Alexandria, Louisiana, 72-hour holding facility. That probably took some folks that came across the border that we didn't feel like they needed to come across up to this holding facility where they should technically be processed out of the country. I don't know how much of that is really happening, okay? All right, now, this is where it starts to get interesting. Over the weekend, I started watching flights go in and out of Guantanamo Bay, and we're going to talk about that. First up, we're going to talk about the Naval Air Station. The reason I want to point this one out is because this is Key West. Now, you may remember several months ago, we were watching flights. We had the DOJ come in, and then they basically rolled in around the same time as the base commander from Guantanamo Bay. And so today, I just want you to see this board. We have had a flurry of birds come in today from Oceana Naval Air Station. That's up there in Virginia Beach. And I mean, I don't know if there's an exercise that's coming up or what we got going on, but just thought it was interesting. Like I said, this is more than I normally see on any, I mean, you can click on this and it's usually a couple, not very much, but I just noticed the heavy traffic coming in. Got a lot coming in from Norfolk, a lot coming in from Oceana. I don't know if there is a trial, if there's trials going on, what the deal is, but just pointing this out, we probably need to keep our eyes on it just to see if it is something or if this is some type of a naval exercise going on, okay? All right, now there is that, okay, and then this is one of the flights right here that I actually had caught leaving Key West and heading northbound, and so that's probably headed back up to Oceana if I had to guess. All right, but again, just a significant uptick. All right, now XPL Honduras, we haven't really talked about this one for a while. This was one of our prison watch locations because it was one that was put into the National Defense Act for a study as an alternate to Guantanamo Bay. I will tell you, this is as busy as I've ever seen this board. And over a 2-week period, normally you see maybe 5 or 6. As you guys remember, usually we see some Reach aircraft. These seem to be kind of local birds. These are spy birds, I believe. These are 08237s, and then these are all, most of these are little Bell helicopters, all right? With the exception of 1 or 2, like this one right here. Well, actually, sorry, that is one of the Bell helicopters, local. Let me see if it was this War 15. I'm not getting it. I hate when I click on something wrong. All right, maybe it was this one. Yeah, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. But you can see there's one of the birds right there. Nice and banana yellow, my favorite color. All right, so let me back up. Don't know what they're doing down there. This all seems to be very local environment in terms of those flying around the general area. I'm not sure if there is some type of activity going on down there, but clearly significant uptick of what we normally see in the general area. Most of those are going to be helicopters, okay? All right, now the fun part. Let's get over here to Guantanamo Bay, and I'm going to walk you through what I've been watching over the past week. And the reason I'm pointing this out, and the reason, if you remember, when Miss Maxwell was arrested, one of the aircraft N312FU was one that we watched and tracked go into Guantanamo Bay around the time of her arrest. Now, since then, we've had interesting things where she has sent a lot of letters to the judge, and I know this because I've got a Pacer account. I go in and actually read all the content. Most of what is around this is classified, okay? Now, what I find is interesting is that this uptick that we've been watching over the weekend, notice the board's clear, okay? But this uptick we've been watching over the weekend, I didn't realize that Maxwell had her case starting on Monday, all right? Now it kind of makes sense. And I'm hoping this is the case, all right? But let's see here, just real fast, we're gonna look at arrivals over the weekend. You're gonna see, I will talk about this one here in just a minute, coming out of Jacksonville on this past Tuesday. But it looks kind of like a normal thing, except for this one coming in on Saturday, which is out of sequence, and normally that's on a Friday. Could have just been held up for something, okay? But let's get over here real fast. I just want to point out what caught my attention was on Wednesday, we had a Coast Guard, which you don't see them roll in very often, a Coast Guard C-130 roll in, that was C-1704. And then I was watching the location and I saw C-101. Now you guys may remember I was talking about C-101 during that time, and the fact that notice that it came down from DC, but notice the destination. It says Houston, EFD Houston. All right, that's where it was supposed to be going. They changed it, all right, which I think is very interesting, to basically wiped the flight off. And so I saw it coming down, and then I went to the board. I was tracking it in our last sit rep, and then it disappeared. So they basically wiped the board. Now, if he was coming down to cut turkey or break bread with the troops, then they wouldn't have any reason to really wipe the board, okay? So I just want to point out that we do actually have it. This is the aircraft right here. C-101 and C-202 are both these same ones. Now, the person that flies on this is going to be your Director of Homeland Security, and then the Deputy Director of Homeland Security. That's important because I, in all my time of tracking flights going down to Guantanamo Bay, I've never seen them arrive in Guantanamo Bay. Now, this is C-101, and you're going to notice that flight is not on there. Did you notice Key West is on there, though, this past Sunday, the 21st? All right, what do we have going on in Key West today? Coincidence? Maybe. All right, but this basically on that Wednesday, between Monday and Thursday, was the flight, and it now is gone, all right? So they wiped it. Why did they erase it? I don't know. I thought that was suspect. Then the next thing you know, you see C-101 showing up in California. Now, the other piece is that Air Transport International flight that came in out of Jacksonville. Now, normally that comes out of Norfolk, but it has from time to time. You'll see it pop in, usually when there's a case going on, into Jacksonville. It picks up some legal eagles and it takes them in. And so we'll take a closer look now at the aircraft itself, and you're going to notice something. It's not just a cargo airplane, okay? And notice the back section of this has windows, all right? That's because that back section is set up for carrying people. And so now remember, out of Norfolk, you have NCIS, which is going to be, your investigative branch, all right? And then out of Jacksonville, you got your legal eagles. And so somebody was getting a ride down there, probably legal eagles, but why would they be doing this? All right. Now, if you go over here and you look at the court docket and information, you're going to see that this is the 29th over here, right? Notice that the Shaka Khan stuff, it ended on the 19th. So why are they down here? Why would the Department of Homeland Security be there to begin with? Typically, it's the DOJ that goes down there and does this. So that, to me, was a red flag. Something is happening down here that they don't want the press, who was down for this, to see. So they've got this stuff bumped in. Now, remember, we were talking not too long ago, and I want to show you. Here's C202. Now, C202 is, if it's not the Director of Homeland Security, it's going to be the Deputy Director. I think it's a deputy that came down. I think the director flight, C101, is the one that we saw get wiped. They don't want you knowing you're going down there. Why? Okay. Now, take a look at C202. C202 made 3 trips down there since last Thursday. Okay. So you can see it. It came down and went back to DC. And so it came down on Thursday. This one right here, you see Thursday flight, arrived at 7:34 p.m. Notice it says last seen near Matthewtown, Bahamas. That's because they killed the transponder when they made the hook before they landed at Guantanamo Bay. Very common for them to do that. So, but the next one, it flew back to DC. You see that. But it made 3 trips back and forth from Washington, D.C. to Guantanamo Bay since Thursday. Many of them on Sunday over the weekend, which is very unusual. Why 3 trips? Okay, why the Department of Homeland Security? All right, now, here's why I've always thought that Miss Maxwell was actually at Guantanamo Bay. One, because I saw the aircraft that tracked down there. But if you go and look at the prison codes, I'm going to show you these prison codes. Take a look first off at Keith Rainier, okay? That registration number, 57005, okay, that is his inmate number. That -177 is his location, okay? Now, he was in Manhattan, and then he got moved supposedly to USP Tucson. However, that isn't necessarily accurate, all right? And the reason I say that is because if you get over here to, let me bump on over here. I want to show you, here's Maxwell's, okay? Now you're going to notice she's showing MDC Brooklyn, all right? But notice the number on hers, 509, all right, -509. That is not MDC Brooklyn, and I'm going to show you why. Now, if I click over here, look at Epstein. He was at the same location when he didn't kill himself, all right? Notice 054, that is supposedly the number for MDC Manhattan, okay? And that's at -054. Now, I learned all this from someone that was part of the Bureau of Prisons, okay? They are the ones that contacted me and told me what all this meant. They had retired from there, and they walked me through it. And so that was Epstein. Now, remember, I tracked his flights right around the time of his suicide, all the way down to Guantanamo Bay. So I think that he was suicided and moved to Guantanamo Bay. That was just my opinion based on the flight data, okay? But I saw the same flight data as it relates to Miss Maxwell, all right? Now, if you get over here and look at Maxwell, 509, Brooklyn, MDC, again, Anthony Weiner was at Brooklyn, same location, 054. So you've got 2 confirmations at 054, which is Weiner and Epstein, both at the same location as Miss Maxwell, all right? But she's at 0509 and Rainier is at 177. So why is that important? Well, let me just show you as I get over here. This is that, I was just talking about the 3-digit facility code, okay? So you know that's how they identify the location. That is a correctional facility identification code, all right? Now, you get over here, and I'm just going to point out Arizona, remember, he was 177. Take a look at this, 008, all right? Now, you get down here to 0054, and it's going to tell you that's New York, all right? Southern District of New York, okay? So that, if you notice too, this doesn't go into anything above 100. It stops at 98, all right? So they are at 2 locations that are that don't really jive with the prison system. That's why I think they are being protected. So why would they protect them? That's a great question. So let's just take a quick look. I want to show you something here Of course, this is the headline talking about her trial beginning today. All right, and we see all of this weird, strange traffic going in and out of Guantanamo Bay. But if you go over, and we're going to talk about watching the water here for just a second. Miss Maxwell was part of, actually, she founded a company called the Terramar Project. The Terramar Project was actually dissolved 3 December 2019 after her arrest. Now, if you look at the folks that were actually involved in this, what they basically have done, and if you know, if you've read any of the content around her arrest, they ask her, is she a citizen of the United States? She says no. Are you a citizen of the United Kingdom? Yes. Are you a citizen anywhere else? Her answer, Terramar. Okay. Now, Terramar is actually people that claim citizenship to the ocean. All right. So remember, the planet is 72% water. And so these people are claiming 72% of the water on the planet is their actual home. That is their citizenship. Now, sounds a little bit wacky, I know, but as you get down into this and look at the folks that are involved, if you do any research on it, it actually is pretty much every heavy hitter around the planet. Okay, so this ties into the Clinton Foundation. It ties into all the big head cheeses, the Rothschilds. I mean, it rolls right into every basically powerful person in the world. Now, the reason I say that is because if you get over here and you look at Klaus Schwab's School for the Great Reset, this is actually a school of young global leaders. I don't know if you've looked at this or not, but it's all ties in. If you don't know who Klaus Schwab is the director of the World Economic Forum, or sorry, he's not the director. He is the basically the head of it, right? So he's been running it, and I got a Biden moment. You're just gonna have to bear with me for a second. But anyway, he runs the World Economic Forum, has been since, for a long time, okay? And so, but he is the guy that wrote The Great Reset. Now, if you get into this and you look how many people and global world leaders have gone through this school to learn about how to execute the plan, which is the Great Reset, there are some 400 global world leaders that have been through this course from 190, I think it was, different nations or countries. And so, let me see, the number's in here somewhere. Actually, I think I just passed it. Yeah, here it is. 190 governments from all around the world. All right, so there is that. But let's just take a look at some of the folks that have been through this. You've got Angela Merkel. You got Gavin Newsom, California. Where's your supply chain issue coming out of? Look at this dude, Booty, whatever his name is, right? He's been through it. Class of 2019. You've got Emmanuel Macron. You've got, there you go, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. What a shocker, right? So the list of these folks, basically everybody that you have ever seen on that platform, which all tie into the this Terramar project, they're all involved in this. When you start looking at actually everything that was tied to this, they're all there. They're all involved. And so it's actually pretty mind-boggling when you piece it all together. All right, so let's talk very briefly. Let's get into these prison camps. I want to show you guys something. The reason I've been pointing this out for quite some time, as we start to watch this stuff grow, if you start looking at the camps, these little black dots on here are all of the immigration camps that have popped up across the United States. And they are, like I said, we've looked at the ones in Tucson. We've seen the recent ones in Hunter. They're actually down here in Guantanamo Bay. But if you look at the prison camps and you combine that with the quarantine camps that are being set up by the CDC, we've got about 37 of them across the United States right now, okay? Now, why is that important? Well, this right here is a picture of Dachau. This is the very first concentration camp. It started out as a tool, well, it actually started out as a munitions manufacturer, which was repurposed for an immigration location. Now, that is Dachau, the first concentration camp, okay? And it was basically used to house immigrants, okay, before it was used for the purposes that we know, okay? So we start looking at these camps that are popping up everywhere. You've got them all around the United States. We've got the flashbang administration talking that they were going to actually put in a $15 million classified workspace so they could do trials at Guantanamo Bay. You've also heard them talk about standing up when we had the big push of Haitians that came to the southern border. He immediately talked about standing up or constructing a immigration village, so to speak, to detain them at Guantanamo Bay. And so all of this has been going on around the same time. But it's important to note classified space. That means they want to be able to try people there without anybody knowing, because when it's classified, ain't nobody can talk about it, okay? So there is that. Now, this is the one that gets my attention, the reason I'm pointing out these other camp locations and why I'm going to kind of tie all this back together real fast. This is the one in Australia. Notice it looks a lot like Dachau. This is the location in the Northern Territory of Australia that is now being populated with its citizens. They're basically going door to door. This is it right here, big aerial shot. You can see the runway, and they're basically taking people to that. Now, I've heard numbers upwards of 28,000. I don't know how accurate that is, but I will tell you that that should have us all concerned, okay? This is the one in Tucson. If you notice, there is razor wire across the top of the gate, and it has got the blacked out fence, silt fence around the outside so you can't see what's going on the inside, all right? One of few that are actually not on a military installation here in the United States. There's part of that tent city as well. These things are popping up all over the U.S. That's why I was pointing out this map, okay? Now, we have to pay close attention to this, because as these locations start to vacate across the United States and these immigrants start to get rehomed, we need to make sure that these things are actually going away, because if they keep them there, they could be repurposed for us, okay? So you got to pay close attention to that. Now, the reason I am talking about this, this Maxwell piece is because if you go into the Great Reset and you look at their plan, involuntary immigration is one of the big pieces of it, but they basically tell you social instability, national governance failure, you know, this is all part of their execution, plan to execute. And these are all the folks that are tied in. These are very powerful people, and they're all tied in with Miss Maxwell. So why would they have her at Guantanamo Bay for this? Or would they be keeping her there as well as others? I do believe very, very possible. I have yet to see her in New York. Doesn't mean they wouldn't fly her up there, but they are certainly not keeping her, in my opinion, in that prison location just based on those numbers, because that number 509 does not tie to any prison in the system. So there is that, okay? Coincidence, the fact that it all started taking shape, we started seeing the flights in just before the trial began today. Boy, it just seems like that is really what is going on. I mean, if it's not that, and she is indeed in Manhattan, and she's at the court system, then these camps become a whole other piece that we need to keep our eye on, because that means that there's something going on at Guantanamo Bay that would indicate a trial taking shape that doesn't involve that, nor does it involve 9/11 people. And so we got to pay close attention to this. We're going to continue to watch it and monitor and see if we get any kind of other indicators. But like I said, there's definitely something a little squirrely here. I think, you know, if I had to say, I think it's probably going to be Miss Maxwell, and that's what we see, this activity going on. But again, if she shows up in New York and that's not her, we need to be looking closely at that. So, all right, so let's get back over here to the U.S. You guys see, as we're looking at this, I just want to show you, these are, you've got, these are all Navy birds rolling out. Down in Florida. Like I said, we don't really see that too often. Now, these are a couple air refuelers right here, but we've had a couple P-8s running around off the coast of, this is Cape Canaveral, which is a submarine port that you see them come in and out of there quite a bit. And so that could be just doing some comms with a sub off the coast. That's one of our Navy birds rolling back out of Naval Air Station down in Key West. And a lot of little 2 ships here. Those are both air refuelers as well. And they look to be coming inbound. Let's see where that one came from. Yeah, again, out here off the water, which would indicate we have some fighters out in this general area. Okay. All right. And I think on the next show, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Club Ks, because the only thing I can think of as I watch all of this activity take along the shore and the coastline on the East Coast is, you know, with the fighters that are up, would be that maybe that is a threat or a concern if it's not a foreign submarine or something. And then when I talk a little bit about that on their next sit rep, you guys will see why I'm saying that, okay? Again, this is just, looks like most of the traffic up here is going to be trainers throughout here. We do have a couple E3s, Sentries in the general area. That's kind of common in this general area. We're not seeing the R135s that we typically get up here. Let's see. Let me get over here to Skyglass real fast. I'm really curious to see. Let me do a fresh burn. I'm gonna close this and do a quick burn on it. And let me take away that. And then I just want to see real fast if we got any high flyers, anything going on that's, you know, to catch our eye. Now, this is the most beautiful thing when I'm doing this, is just kicking it down sideways and being able to look across it. Now, I will tell you guys that from a Skyglass perspective, this thing is about to wrap up the beta here in the next couple of days, and he's going to be actually pushing out the first release here pretty soon. And so this is going to be, I'm telling you, this is the wave of the future, and this is really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, these are, you can see these pinks are high flyers. These are people that are masked, just like the NAs. They don't want to be seen. They don't want you knowing their locations. And so let me see which, I've got one here. Again, a lot of Navy birds up today, quite a few. And of course, that's a Navy bird that doesn't want to be seen, which is interesting. All right. Very interesting. All right. So let's do this. I will be back on Wednesday with our next sit rep. That is going to be talking more on the Club Ks, looking at some of the activity off the coast and stuff. We're going to also continue to monitor Key West to see if we get any more uptick in activity, as well as obviously Guantanamo Bay, and see if it's tied to Miss Maxwell or if we've got a other situation where maybe some Patriots are being tried. So, all right, listen, that's going to be it. You guys be safe out there. Stay frosty. We'll see you on Wednesday. God bless. Monkey out.
Check out the latest gear and products at monkeyworxus.com.